The bruise on Fiona Emerson's cheekbone had turned from purple to a sickly yellow, and she knew her mother would notice. It was still visible when she served breakfast that morning in Angel's Camp, California, where the gold fever had long since faded but desperation still clung to every weathered building like dust. It was 1882, and the summer heat pressed down on the small boarding house. Her mother ran with an iron fist and a leather strap that hung behind the kitchen door. Fiona had dropped a plate the night before, just one plate, and the crack of her mother's hand across her face had been swift and merciless. At 21 years old, Fiona should have left by now, should have found work elsewhere or married one of the miners who occasionally tipped their hats to her. But fear kept her rooted in place like the old oak tree behind the house. She moved through the kitchen with practiced silence, her bare feet making no sound on the wooden floor as she stoked the fire in the cast iron stove. The bacon was already sizzling when she heard her mother's heavy footsteps on the stairs, and her shoulders tensed automatically. "You are moving too slow," Margaret Emerson said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "The boarders will be down any minute, and you have not even started the biscuits." "I am sorry, Mother, I will hurry." Sorry does not feed paying customers. Her mother's eyes fixed on the fading bruise, and something like satisfaction flickered there. "Maybe next time you will remember to be more careful with my dishes." Fiona kept her eyes down and reached for the flour, measuring it with shaking hands. She had learned long ago that talking back only made things worse, that any mistake, no matter how small, would result in punishment. A crooked tablecloth, a spot on a glass, a moment of daydreaming when she should have been scrubbing floors. All of it earned her mother's wrath. The boarders came down one by one, tired men who worked at the lumber mill or tried their luck in the dwindling mines. Fiona served them silently, refilling coffee cups and removing empty plates, her movements efficient and invisible. She had perfected the art of disappearing while standing right in front of people. It was the new boarder who first really saw her. Zachary Zenon walked into the boarding house at noon, his saddle bag slung over one shoulder and his hat tilted back to reveal sun-darkened skin and eyes the color of storm clouds. He was tall, with the lean build of a man who spent his days in the saddle, and when he smiled at Fiona, she felt something unfamiliar flutter in her chest. "I am looking for a room," he said, his voice low and warm. "I heard in town that Mrs. Emerson has space." "We do," Margaret said, appearing from the back room with the practiced smile she reserved for customers. $3 a week, meals included, payment in advance." Zachary counted out the money without hesitation, and Margaret's smile widened. "My daughter will show you to your room." "Fiona, take Mr. Zenon upstairs." Fiona nodded and picked up one of his bags, but Zachary gently took it from her hands. "I can manage, miss. Just point the way." She led him up the narrow staircase to the second floor, acutely aware of his presence behind her. Most men did not offer to carry their own bags. Most men barely acknowledged her existence beyond her usefulness. "This is it," she said quietly, opening the door to a small but clean room with a bed, washstand, and a window overlooking the street. "Supper is at 6, breakfast at 7. We ask that you keep the room tidy. I appreciate it." He set his bags down and turned to face her fully. His eyes lingered on her bruise and she instinctively touched her cheek. "Are you all right, Miss Emerson?" "I am fine. I am clumsy sometimes. I walked into a door." His expression said he did not believe her, but he did not press. "Well, thank you for the hospitality. I look forward to getting to know you better." Fiona fled before he could say anything else, her heart pounding in a way that frightened her. She was not supposed to feel things. Feelings led to mistakes, and mistakes led to pain. Over the next few days, Zachary became a fixture in the boarding house, But unlike the other men, he seemed to notice everything. He noticed when Fiona flinched at sudden movements. He noticed when her mother's voice took on that particular edge that meant trouble. He noticed the careful way Fiona held herself, as if trying to take up as little space as possible. On the fourth day, he found her behind the house, hanging laundry with tears streaming down her face. She had burned the beans at lunch, and her mother had grabbed her arm hard enough to leave finger-shaped marks on her skin. "Miss Emerson," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She spun around, hastily wiping her eyes. "I am sorry. I did not know anyone was out here. Do not apologize." He stepped closer, his hands held loosely at his sides. "I have been watching, and I cannot stay silent anymore. Your mother hurts you." "No, I just make mistakes. I am not a good daughter." "That is not true." His voice was firm but gentle. "I grew up in a house where forgiveness ruled, where mistakes were teaching moments, not reasons for violence. What your mother does is not normal, Fiona. It is not right." Hearing her name from his lips sent a shiver through her. "You do not understand. I have nowhere else to go." "Then come with me." She stared at him, certain she had misheard. "What?" "I have a ranch about 2 days' ride from here. It is not much yet, but I am building it up. I need help, and you need a place where you are safe. Come work for me. I will pay you fair wages, and I promise you, nobody will ever raise a hand to you again. You do not even know me." "I know enough." He took a careful step closer. "I know you are kind because I have watched you slip extra food to the old man in room 3 who cannot always afford his meals. I know you are strong because you get up every morning despite everything your mother puts you through. I know you deserve better than this." Fiona wanted to say yes so badly it physically hurt, but fear held her tongue. "My mother will never let me go. You are 21 years old. She cannot stop you." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "This is a map to my ranch. If you change your mind, if you decide you want a different life, you follow this map. I will be leaving tomorrow at dawn. You can ride with me or you can come later on your own. Either way, the offer stands." He pressed the map into her hand and walked away, leaving her standing among the flapping sheets with hope and terror warring in her chest. That night, Fiona lay awake in her small attic room, the map clutched in her hand. She thought about a house where forgiveness ruled, where mistakes were not punished with violence. It seemed like a fairy tale, impossible and far away. But when she closed her eyes, she could still see the honest concern in Zachary's gray eyes, could still hear the certainty in his voice when he said she deserved better. Maybe she did. The decision crystallized just before dawn. Fiona packed her few belongings into a cloth sack, her hands moving quickly and quietly. She owned almost nothing: 2 dresses, a spare pair of shoes, a brush, and a small Bible that had belonged to her grandmother. Everything fit easily into the sack. She crept down the stairs, avoiding the 3rd step that creaked. The house was still dark and silent, her mother asleep in her room off the kitchen. Fiona's heart hammered so hard she thought it might wake the whole house. There was money in a tin in the pantry, the household funds her mother kept for supplies. Fiona stared at it for a long moment, then took only what she figured she had earned over the past month. $10. It was not stealing if it was payment for her labor. The front door opened without a sound, and then she was outside in the cool pre-dawn air, free for the first time in her life. Zachary was already in the stable behind the boarding house, saddling a beautiful chestnut mare. He looked up when she entered, and his face broke into a smile that made her feel warm all over. "You came. I was afraid you would leave without me. I would have waited until noon," he said simply. "I am glad you decided to trust me, Fiona." He had a second horse, a gentle gray gelding, already saddled and waiting. I borrowed him from a friend in town. Do you know how to ride? A little. It has been a long time. We will take it slow. He helped her mount, his hands respectful and steady, then swung up onto his own horse. My ranch is called the Crossroads. It sits at the junction of two valleys with a creek running through the property. It is peaceful there. I think you will like it. They rode out of Angel's camp as the sun was just beginning to paint the eastern sky pink and gold. Fiona did not look back. The journey took 2 days, just as Zachary had said. They rode through rolling hills dotted with oak trees and across meadows thick with wildflowers. Zachary talked as they traveled, telling her about his life in an easy, unhurried way that made her slowly relax. I grew up in Texas, he said, on a small ranch with my parents and 3 brothers. My father believed that a man's character showed in how he treated those weaker than himself. He said anger was a choice, and violence against family was a coward's choice. That sounds wonderful, Fiona said quietly. It was. My mother used to say that mistakes were how we learned and punishment should fit the crime. If we broke something, we fixed it or worked to replace it. If we lied, we had to make it right with the truth. But there was never hitting, never cruelty. Why did you leave? A shadow passed over his face. A fever swept through 5 years ago. I lost my parents and my youngest brother within a week. My other brothers moved east, but I wanted to start fresh somewhere new. So I came to California, worked as a ranch hand for a few years, saved every penny, and finally bought my own land last year. I am sorry about your family. Thank you. I miss them every day. He looked at her with those storm-gray eyes. But I think they would be proud of what I am building. And I think they would be proud that I am trying to help someone who needs it. They camped that first night under the stars, and Fiona felt something loosening in her chest. Some tight knot of fear that had been there so long she had forgotten it was not supposed to be part of her. Zachary built the fire, cooked beans and bacon in a small pan, and talked about his plans for the ranch. I have about 50 head of cattle right now, and I am building up a string of horses. The land is good for grazing, and there is plenty of water from the creek. I hired a hand named Samuel who helps with the heavy work, and his wife Rosa cooks and keeps the house. You will like them. What would I do there? Whatever you want, honestly. Rosa could use help with the house and the garden. If you like animals, you could help with the horses. Or if you want to learn ranch work, I will teach you. The point is, Fiona, you will have choices, and you will be safe. That night, wrapped in a blanket Zachary had lent her, Fiona cried silent tears of relief and fear and a strange, fragile hope she was afraid to name. The Crossroads Ranch appeared in the late afternoon of the second day, and Fiona caught her breath at the sight of it. The house was modest but well built, with a wide porch and windows that gleamed in the sunlight. Beyond it, she could see a barn, a corral with horses, and rolling pastures where cattle grazed. Mountains rose in the distance, purple against the blue sky. It is beautiful, she whispered. Zachary's smile was proud. Welcome home, Fiona. Samuel and Rosa came out to greet them, and Fiona immediately felt at ease. Samuel was a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and a ready laugh, and Rosa was a plump woman with graying hair and a motherly warmth that made Fiona want to cry. So this is the young lady you told us about, Rosa said, taking Fiona's hands in hers. Welcome, Mija. Come inside. You must be exhausted from the journey. The house was everything Fiona had dreamed a home could be. The rooms were simple but comfortable, with furniture that looked handmade and curtains that fluttered in the breeze from open windows. Rosa showed her to a small bedroom off the kitchen, with a real bed and a colorful quilt. This is yours for as long as you need it, Rosa said. Now you rest a bit while I make supper. But Fiona could not rest. She followed Rosa to the kitchen, needing to be useful, needing to prove she was worth the kindness she was being shown. "Please, let me help." Rosa studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right. You can start by washing those potatoes." They worked together in comfortable silence, and Fiona found herself relaxing into the rhythm of it. When she accidentally knocked over the salt shaker, she flinched, waiting for the blow. But Rosa just laughed and swept up the spilled salt. "A little mess never hurt anyone," she said cheerfully. "Just throw some over your left shoulder for luck." Fiona stared at her. "You are not angry about salt. Of course not, child." Rosa's eyes softened with understanding. "Things can be cleaned up, no harm done." That night at supper, Fiona sat at the table with Zachary, Samuel, and Rosa, and listened to them talk and laugh together like family. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody criticized. When Samuel accidentally spilled his water, Zachary just handed him a cloth with a grin. "Getting clumsy in your old age, Sam." "I am only 35, you young pup," Samuel shot back, and they all laughed. Fiona felt like she had stumbled into another world, one where people were kind to each other just because they could be. Over the following weeks, Fiona began to settle into life at the Crossroads Ranch. She helped Rosa in the house and garden, learning to can vegetables and bake bread in the wood stove. She fed the chickens and collected eggs, marveling that she was allowed to make mistakes without punishment. And she watched Zachary. He was up before dawn every morning, working alongside Samuel to mend fences, tend to the cattle, and break the young horses. He worked hard, but he never seemed tired, and he always had a smile for her when he came in for meals. He was patient with the animals, she noticed. When a young colt bucked and fought the saddle, Zachary did not lose his temper or use force. Instead, he spoke softly, moved slowly, and rewarded even small steps of progress. His hands were gentle but firm, teaching without intimidating. "Horses are like people," he told her one evening when she came to watch him work. "They learn better through trust than fear. If you hurt them, they will obey out of terror, but they will never really be yours. But if you show them kindness and consistency, they will give you everything they have." "Is that what your father taught you?" "It is what he showed me every day of his life." Zachary ran a hand down the colt's neck, and the animal leaned into his touch. "He used to say that any fool can rule through fear, but it takes a real man to lead through respect." Fiona thought about her mother, about the constant fear that had governed her life. What if the person does not know any other way? Then someone needs to show them. He looked at her directly, his gray eyes serious. "Hurt people often hurt other people. It is a cycle." "But cycles can be broken, Fiona. You have already broken it by leaving, by choosing a different path." "I do not feel very brave." "Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to act despite the fear." He stepped closer, and she could smell the clean scent of hay and leather that always clung to him. "You were terrified to leave, but you did it anyway. That takes more courage than anything I have ever done." She felt heat rise to her cheeks and ducked her head. "You gave me the courage by offering me a way out." "No, I just opened a door. You are the one who walked through it." Their friendship deepened as the summer wore on. Zachary taught her to ride properly, his hands steadying her when she lost her balance, his voice encouraging when she wanted to give up. He showed her the boundaries of his land, pointing out landmarks and sharing his dreams for the future. "I want to breed quality horses," he said as they sat beside the creek one afternoon, watching the water dance over smooth stones. "Not just working animals, but horses with spirit and intelligence. I want to be known for treating them well, for producing animals that people can trust." "You will," Fiona said with certainty. "You are good at this, Zachary. Anyone can see that. I want to build something lasting, something I can be proud of." He picked up a smooth stone and turned it over in his fingers. I want a family someday. Kids who grow up knowing they are loved, who learn that home is a place of safety. His words sent an ache through her chest. That sounds perfect. What do you want, Fiona? You have been so busy helping everyone else. What are your dreams? No one had ever asked her that before. She thought about it, watching the play of sunlight on the water. I want to never be afraid again. I want to wake up in the morning without worrying what I might do wrong. I want to feel like I matter, like my life has purpose beyond just surviving. You do matter. His voice was intense, and when she looked at him, his eyes were burning with an emotion she was afraid to name. You matter so much, Fiona. You bring light into this place. Rosa says the house feels more like a home with you in it. Samuel says you have a natural way with the animals. He stopped himself, looking away. And you what? She whispered. And I find myself looking for you constantly, listening for your voice, making excuses to be near you. He stood abruptly, running a hand through his dark hair. I am sorry. That is not fair to you. You came here for safety, not to have me making things complicated. Fiona stood too, her heart racing. What if I do not mind complicated? He turned to stare at her. Fiona, I look for you too, she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. I listen for your footsteps. When you smile at me, I feel warm all over. When you are near me, I feel safe in a way I have never felt before. I do not know what that means, but I know I do not want it to stop. Zachary closed the distance between them in 2 long strides. He raised his hands as if to touch her face, then stopped, waiting for permission. Fiona nodded, and his palms cradled her cheeks with heartbreaking gentleness. I am falling in love with you, he said, his voice rough. I think I started falling the moment I saw you in that kitchen, trying so hard to be invisible. I see you, Fiona, all of you, and you are extraordinary. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and he brushed them away with his thumbs. I am falling in love with you too. I am scared, but I am falling. I will catch you, he promised. Every single time. When he kissed her, it was soft and careful, asking rather than taking. Fiona rose on her toes and kissed him back, pouring all her hope and fear and newfound courage into that moment. His arms came around her, holding her close but not tight, and she felt something break open inside her chest, letting in light where there had only been darkness. They pulled apart slowly, and Zachary rested his forehead against hers. We can go as slow as you need. There is no rush, no pressure. I just need you to know that my intentions are honorable. I want to court you properly if you will have me. I will have you, she said, laughing through her tears. Yes. The next months were the happiest of Fiona's life. Zachary courted her with patience and care, bringing her wildflowers from the meadow and teaching her to dance to the music from his old fiddle. He held her hand as they walked in the evenings, and he kissed her good night with a sweetness that made her believe in fairy tales. Rosa watched them with knowing eyes and began teaching Fiona family recipes, the kind a wife would need to know. Samuel taught her to rope and brand, treating her like a valued member of the ranch rather than a piece of decoration. But as autumn painted the leaves gold and red, a shadow fell over Fiona's happiness. A letter arrived, forwarded through the mercantile in the nearest town, and she recognized her mother's sharp handwriting with a jolt of terror. Her hands shook as she opened it. Fiona, you ungrateful, wicked girl. You stole from me and ran off like a thief in the night. I know you went with that cowboy boarder. I will find you, and when I do, you will pay for this betrayal. You belong to me. You will always belong to me. Your mother Zachary found her sitting on the porch steps, the letter crumpled in her fist, her face white with fear. He sat beside her without a word, and she handed him the letter with trembling fingers. He read it, his jaw tightening with each word. When he finished, he crumpled it further and threw it into the yard, She cannot hurt you here. You do not know her. She is relentless. Then she will learn that I am too. He took her cold hands in his warm ones. Listen to me, Fiona. You are not that scared girl anymore. You are strong. You are loved. And you are not alone. If your mother comes here, she will have to go through me, and I promise you, I will not let her take you back to that life. I do not want to bring trouble to your door. You are not trouble. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. He lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. We face this together. That is what love means. That night, as they sat around the supper table, Zachary told Samuel and Rosa about the letter. Both of them immediately rallied to Fiona's defense. That woman has no claim here, Rosa said fiercely. This is your home now, Mija. We will not let her drag you back. If she shows her face, I will personally escort her off the property, Samuel added, his normally gentle face hard with determination. Fiona felt tears of gratitude fill her eyes. She had never had people fight for her before, had never known what it felt like to have others stand between her and harm. Margaret Emerson arrived 3 weeks later, riding into the ranch yard in a hired wagon, her face twisted with fury and determination. Fiona was in the garden when she heard her mother's voice, and she froze, transported back to every terrible moment of her childhood in an instant. Where is my daughter? I know she is here. Zachary emerged from the barn, his posture relaxed but his eyes hard. Mrs. Emerson. Fiona told me you might come. She is my daughter. She belongs with me. She is a grown woman and she belongs wherever she chooses to be. Margaret's eyes narrowed. She is a liar and a thief. She stole money from me. She took wages she earned through months of labor. That is not theft. How dare you? No, how dare you? Zachary's voice was quiet but carried an edge of steel that made even Fiona straighten in surprise. I have seen the bruises. I have seen the fear. What you did to your daughter is inexcusable, and it stops here. Margaret's face flushed an ugly red. You know nothing about raising children. Sometimes discipline is necessary. Discipline and abuse are not the same thing. My father disciplined me plenty, but he never once raised a hand to me in anger. He taught me through words and example, through natural consequences and honest conversation. What you did to Fiona was not discipline. It was cruelty. Fiona found her voice and stepped out from behind the garden gate. Mother, please just go. I am not coming back. Margaret whirled to face her, and Fiona saw the familiar rage in her eyes. Her mother started toward her, one hand raised, and Fiona flinched despite herself. But Zachary was faster. He stepped between them, his body a wall of protection. Do not. Get out of my way. No. The single word was implacable. You will not touch her, not now, not ever again. She is my daughter, and she is the woman I love, the woman I intend to marry. She is under my protection now, and I will defend her with everything I have. He stood taller, broader, utterly immovable. You can leave peacefully, or I can have the sheriff escort you off the property. Your choice. Margaret stared at him, then at Fiona, and something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or recognition that she had truly lost control. You will regret this, both of you. The only thing I regret, Fiona said, her voice stronger than she expected, is that I did not leave sooner. Goodbye, Mother. Margaret climbed back into the wagon, her movements stiff with anger. As she drove away, Fiona felt something inside her break free, some last chain of fear and obligation finally snapping. Zachary turned to her, concern written all over his face. Are you all right? She launched herself into his arms, and he caught her, holding her tight while she cried, not from sadness but from relief, from the incredible, overwhelming realization that she was truly free. I am all right, she said against his chest. I am finally all right. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Zachary took Fiona's hand in his. I meant what I said, he told her quietly. About marrying you. I know we have not been courting long, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. You are my home, Fiona. You are my peace. Will you marry me? She looked at this man who had shown her what kindness looked like, who had taught her that love could be gentle and safe. This man who had stood between her and her worst nightmare without hesitation. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will marry you. His smile was brighter than the sunset, and when he kissed her, she felt like she was finally, truly alive. They were married in the small church in town 6 weeks later, on a crisp November day when the air smelled of pine and wood smoke. Rosa helped Fiona make a dress from cream-colored fabric they bought at the mercantile, with lace at the collar and cuffs. Samuel stood as Zachary's best man, and Rosa cried happy tears as she watched them exchange vows. I promise to love you with patience and kindness, Zachary said, his hands holding her steady. I promise to create a home where forgiveness rules, where mistakes are opportunities to learn, and where you will always be safe. I promise to honor you, cherish you, and stand beside you through whatever life brings. You are my heart, Fiona. Fiona's voice shook with emotion as she spoke her own vows. I promise to love you with my whole heart. I promise to trust you, to build a life with you, to be your partner in all things. You showed me what love really means, Zachary. You taught me that I am worthy of kindness. I promise to remind you every day how grateful I am that you opened that door and waited for me to walk through it. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Zachary kissed her with a tenderness that made the small congregation sigh with appreciation. They held a simple celebration at the ranch, with music and dancing and a meal Rosa had spent days preparing. As Fiona danced with her new husband under the stars, she thought about the girl she had been just months ago, so broken and afraid. That girl would never have believed this happiness was possible. What are you thinking? Zachary asked, pulling her closer. That I am the luckiest woman alive. I am the lucky one, he countered. You are everything I never knew I needed, Fiona Zenon. She laughed at the sound of her new name. Say it again. Fiona Zenon, my wife, my love, my home. Their first year of marriage was not without challenges. Learning to run a ranch took more work than Fiona had imagined, and there were days when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm them both. But through it all, Zachary kept his promise. When Fiona made mistakes, and she made plenty, he never raised his voice in anger. When she burned supper or forgot to latch the chicken coop or miscalculated the supplies they needed from town, he simply worked with her to fix the problem. Everyone makes mistakes, he would say, kissing her forehead. That is how we learn. Slowly, painfully, Fiona learned to let go of the fear that had controlled her for so long. She learned that mistakes were not catastrophes, that small failures did not define her worth, that love could exist without terror lurking behind it. She also discovered that she had a gift with horses. The gentleness Zachary showed the animals, she mirrored naturally, and the horses responded to her with trust and affection. Together, she and Zachary began building the breeding program he had dreamed of, selecting horses for temperament and intelligence as much as physical traits. You are a natural, Zachary told her one spring morning as she worked with a young mare who had been skittish and difficult. Under Fiona's patient guidance, the mare had blossomed into a calm, willing partner. I think we should make you a full partner in the ranch, equal say in all decisions. Really, really. This is your home as much as mine, Fiona. Your work matters, your voice matters. I want to build this life together, truly together. She threw her arms around his neck and kissed him soundly. I love you so much. I love you too, now and always. In the summer of their second year of marriage, Fiona realized she was pregnant. She told Zachary one evening as they sat beside the creek, their special place, and watched the water flow past. "I am going to have a baby," she said simply. Zachary went very still beside her. Then he turned to her with wonder written all across his face. "Truly, truly. Rosa helped me confirm it. I am about 3 months along, she thinks." He let out a whoop of joy that startled the birds from the nearby trees and swept her into his arms, spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to stop. When he set her down, his eyes were wet with tears. "We are going to be parents," he said, his voice full of awe. "We are going to have a family. Are you happy?" Happy does not begin to cover it. "I am overwhelmed. I am terrified. I am more excited than I have ever been about anything." He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "This child is going to grow up in a house filled with love. I promise you that, Fiona. They will never know fear or violence. They will know that mistakes are part of learning and that forgiveness is always possible. They will grow up the way every child should." Fiona covered his hand with hers, tears streaming down her face. "They will grow up with the best father in the world." The pregnancy was not easy. Fiona was sick for months, barely able to keep food down, and Zachary hovered over her with concerned devotion. Rosa made bland broths and dry toast, and Samuel took on extra work so Zachary could spend more time with his ailing wife. "I am sorry," Fiona said one particularly bad morning after she had been sick 3 times before breakfast. "For what?" Zachary asked, holding her hair back and rubbing soothing circles on her back. "For being so useless. For not being able to help with the ranch work. Fiona, you are growing our child. That is the most important work there is. Nothing else matters." He helped her rinse her mouth and led her back to bed. "Rest. I have got everything else handled. I feel like I am failing." "You are not failing. You are doing something incredibly difficult and you are doing it beautifully." He kissed her forehead. "There is no such thing as failing at being pregnant, love. Your body is doing exactly what it needs to do." His patience and kindness during those months cemented Fiona's love for him even deeper than she had thought possible. He never complained about the extra work, never made her feel guilty for being unable to contribute the way she wanted to. He simply loved her through it. By her 6th month, the sickness had passed, and Fiona bloomed with health and energy. Her belly grew round and firm, and Zachary could not keep his hands off it, constantly touching and talking to the baby. "Hello in there," he would say, his face pressed close to her stomach. "This is your papa. I cannot wait to meet you. We have so much to show you. There are horses to ride and creeks to splash in and stars to wish on. Your mama and I are going to love you so much." Fiona would run her fingers through his hair and feel such complete contentment that she sometimes feared she might burst from it. They argued only once during the pregnancy about whether they needed to hire additional help. Zachary wanted to bring on another hand to lighten the workload, but Fiona protested that they needed to save money for the baby. "We have plenty saved," Zachary insisted. "I am not going to work myself into exhaustion and leave you to manage alone. And I am not going to sit idle while you struggle," Fiona shot back. "I can still work, Zachary. I am pregnant, not broken." "I know that." His voice rose slightly and they both froze. Zachary immediately closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, his voice was calm. "I am sorry. I did not mean to raise my voice. It is all right. I know you are frustrated. That does not make it all right. Frustration does not excuse losing my temper." He reached for her hands. "Can we start over? Can we discuss this calmly?" They talked it through, really listened to each other's concerns, and reached a compromise. They would hire a part-time hand for the heaviest work, but Fiona would continue with the tasks she enjoyed and felt capable of doing. It was a solution that respected both their needs, And Fiona marveled at how different this was from her mother's way, where arguments ended in violence and submission rather than understanding. "This is what my father meant about forgiveness ruling a house," Zachary explained as they lay in bed that night, his hand resting on her belly. "It is not about never disagreeing. It is about how we treat each other when we do disagree. It is about apologizing when we are wrong, listening when we are right, and always choosing love over anger. Your father was a wise man. He would have loved you so much, and he would have been over the moon about being a grandfather." Their son was born on a cold February night in 1884, after a labor that lasted nearly 20 hours. Zachary stayed by Fiona's side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her brow, and whispering encouragement even when she cursed him for getting her into this situation. "I hate you," she panted during a particularly intense contraction. "I know, love. You can hate me all you want. I am not going anywhere. This is your fault. It absolutely is. I take full responsibility." When the baby finally emerged, howling his displeasure at being forced into the cold world, Rosa wrapped him up and placed him in Fiona's arms. Zachary leaned over them both, his face wet with tears. "He is perfect," Fiona whispered, counting tiny fingers and toes. "He is absolutely perfect." "What should we name him?" Zachary asked. They had discussed names for months without settling on anything. But looking at their son's scrunched-up red face, Fiona knew. "Daniel, after your father." Zachary's breath caught. "Are you sure?" "I am sure. Daniel Zenon." "So your father's legacy of love and forgiveness lives on." They cried together, the three of them, a new family bound by love and hope and the promise of a better way. Daniel was a colicky baby who cried more than he slept for the first 3 months. Fiona was exhausted beyond belief, and there were moments when the stress threatened to overwhelm her. But Zachary was there for every feeding, every diaper change, every tear-soaked 3 in the morning meltdown. "I do not know what I am doing wrong," Fiona sobbed one particularly difficult night, rocking Daniel as he screamed. "Why will he not stop crying? What kind of mother cannot comfort her own baby?" "You are a wonderful mother," Zachary said firmly, taking Daniel from her arms. "Some babies are just like this. It does not mean you are failing. It means he has a strong set of lungs and opinions." He walked the floor with the crying infant bouncing and shushing. "Go to bed, Fiona. Get some rest. I've got him. I should stay up. I am his mother. And you are exhausted. We are partners, remember. That means I do my share. Go sleep." She woke 6 hours later in a panic, certain something terrible had happened, but she found Zachary in the rocking chair by the window, Daniel finally peaceful in his arms, both of them asleep. The early morning light painted them in gold, and Fiona felt her heart swell with so much love she thought it might overflow. This was what a family should be. This was what love looked like. As Daniel grew from a screaming infant into a curious toddler, Fiona watched Zachary father their son with the same patience and gentleness he showed everything in his life. When Daniel dumped an entire pitcher of milk on the floor, Zachary just laughed and helped him clean it up, teaching him how to use a rag properly. When Daniel accidentally let the chickens out of their coop, Zachary turned it into a game, teaching the boy how to coax the birds back with grain. "Mistakes happen," Zachary would tell their son. "What matters is how we fix them and what we learn." Fiona watched this and felt healing happen inside her. Every moment of gentle correction, every instance of patience instead of anger, helped rewrite the script of her childhood. She saw what her own mother had refused to give her, and she made sure Daniel received it in abundance. She also made sure to follow Zachary's example. When 3-year-old Daniel broke one of her favorite teacups, the one Rosa had given her as a wedding present, Fiona felt an instant flash of anger. Her mother's voice echoed in her head, clumsy, careless, worthless, but she took a breath and knelt down to Daniel's level. The little boy was already crying, terrified of punishment. "I am sorry, Mama," he sobbed. "I am sorry, I did not mean to." "I know you did not, sweetheart." She pulled him into a hug. "Accidents happen. Are you hurt? Did you cut yourself on the glass?" "No," he hiccuped. "Good. That is what matters most." She kissed his forehead. "Let's clean this up together and then we will be more careful with Mama's things, all right? You are not angry." "I am a little sad because I loved that cup. But you are more important to me than any cup in the world. I love you, Daniel." Later that night, after Daniel was asleep, Zachary found her sitting on the porch, crying quietly. "What is wrong, love? I sounded just like you today." "Just like your father would have. I responded with love instead of anger, and I did not even have to think about it." She looked at him through her tears. "I am not her, Zachary. I am not my mother. The cycle really is broken." He sat beside her and pulled her close. "You were never her. You were always better than that. You just needed the chance to see it." Their family grew. 2 years after Daniel, they welcomed a daughter they named Grace, for the Grace Fiona felt her life had been given. Grace was a calm baby, completely unlike her colicky brother, and she watched the world with wise, observant eyes. "She has your eyes," Zachary told Fiona, cradling the infant in his large, work-roughened hands. "Same color, same kindness." "And she has your spirit," Fiona replied. "I can already tell she is going to be gentle like you." The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Their horse breeding program became known throughout California, and people traveled from far away to buy their well-trained, even-tempered animals. They hired more hands, built a bigger barn, and expanded their grazing land. But success never changed the core of who they were. The crossroads remained a place where forgiveness ruled, where mistakes were teaching moments, and where love was the foundation of everything. Samuel and Rosa eventually retired, though they stayed on the ranch in a small cottage Zachary built for them. They had become family, beloved grandparents to Daniel and Grace, and a vital part of the ranch's heart. When Daniel was 7 and Grace was 5, Fiona received one final letter from her mother. It was short, written in a shaky hand that suggested illness or age. "Fiona, I am dying. The doctor says I have months at most. I do not expect you to care. I do not expect forgiveness. I know what I was. I know what I did to you. I am not asking you to come see me. I am only asking you to know that I have regrets. Not many, but a few. Hurting you is my greatest one. I hope you found happiness." Margaret Emerson Fiona read the letter 3 times, then showed it to Zachary. "I do not know what to feel," she admitted. "What do you want to feel?" "I do not know that either." She stared at the letter. "Part of me wants to feel victorious, like I won by escaping her and building a good life. But mostly I just feel sad. Sad that she lived her whole life in anger. Sad that we never had the relationship a mother and daughter should have. Sad that she is dying alone." "Do you want to go see her?" Fiona thought about it for a long time. "No, I do not owe her that, but I think I want to write back." She spent 3 days composing a letter, writing and rewriting until she had the words right. "Mother, I received your letter. I am sorry you are ill. You are right that what you did to me was wrong. It hurt me in ways that took years to heal, but I have healed. I found love, safety, and peace. I have a husband who is kind, children who are happy, and a home where forgiveness rules. I forgive you, not because you asked for it, but because carrying anger was poisoning me. Forgiveness does not mean what you did was acceptable. It means I am choosing to let go of the power you had over me. I hope you find peace in your final days." Fiona, she sent the letter and felt lighter than she had in years. Forgiving her mother did not erase the past, but it did release her from it. She was free in a way she had never been before, unburdened by both fear and hatred. When word came 6 weeks later that Margaret had died, Fiona cried, not for the mother her mother could have been, but for the sad, angry woman who had never learned that love was stronger than violence. "Are you all right?" Zachary asked, holding her as she wept. "I am sad. But I am also grateful. Grateful that I escaped. Grateful that our children will never know what I knew. Grateful for you, for this life, for everything we have built together." "She did one good thing," Zachary said quietly. "What?" "She let you go when you ran. She could have followed immediately, could have dragged you back before you ever made it here. But she gave you time to settle, to find your footing. Maybe in her own twisted way that was love, letting you go." Fiona had never thought of it that way. Maybe Zachary was right. Maybe her mother's one act of grace had been to not chase her right away, to give her enough time to find safety. It did not excuse anything else, but it was something. The years rolled on in a rhythm of seasons and growth. Daniel grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved the horses as much as his parents did. Grace was sunny and social, making friends with every person and animal she encountered. 2 more children joined the family, a second son named Thomas and another daughter named Hope. The ranch house expanded to accommodate the growing family, with Zachary and Samuel building new rooms and a second story. The barn was rebuilt, bigger and better. The herds increased, and the crossroads became one of the most successful ranches in the region. But through all the growth and success, Zachary and Fiona never forgot what mattered most. Every night, they gathered their children for supper, and they talked about the day. They celebrated successes and discussed failures, always with the understanding that mistakes were opportunities to learn. "What did you learn today?" became the nightly question, and the children shared their discoveries eagerly. "I learned that if you run too fast, you might trip." 8-year-old Daniel reported one evening sporting a scraped knee. "Did you get hurt badly?" Zachary asked. "Nope, just a scratch." "Then you learned something valuable without a serious cost. That is good learning." "I learned that baby chicks are really soft," 6-year-old Grace added, "and that they peep really loud when they are hungry." "I learned that Mama makes the best biscuits in the whole world," 4-year-old Thomas announced, and everyone laughed. 2-year-old Hope just banged her spoon on the table and said, "More." These were the moments Fiona treasured most. Not the success of the ranch or the money in the bank, but these simple, perfect moments of family. Moments where love was evident in every word and gesture, where forgiveness was woven into the very fabric of their days. One evening, when the children were all in bed and the house was quiet, Fiona and Zachary sat on the porch as they had countless times before. She leaned against him, his arm around her shoulders, and watched the stars emerge in the darkening sky. "You ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Taking a chance on a scared girl who showed up on your doorstep?" "Not for a single second." He kissed the top of her head. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Fiona. You and our children, this life we have built together. I would do it all again in a heartbeat. I was so broken when I met you. You were bent, maybe, bruised, but never broken. You had a strength in you that just needed nurturing to grow. All I did was give you space to heal and become who you were always meant to be. You gave me everything: safety, love, a home, a family. You taught me what it means to be truly loved. And you taught me that gentleness is not weakness, that patience can heal the deepest wounds. That love, real love, is choosing someone every single day and making them feel treasured." He turned her face up to his. "I love you, Fiona Zenon. More now than the day I married you, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today. I love you too. Forever." They kissed as the stars wheeled overhead, 2 people who had found in each other exactly what they needed: love without violence, partnership without fear. A home where forgiveness ruled and mistakes were met with grace. Inside the house, their children slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they were loved unconditionally. They would grow up knowing that home was a safe place, that parents guided with patience rather than punishment, that every person deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. The cycle had been broken. A new legacy had been built. And it all started with a cowboy who believed in forgiveness, and a young woman who had the courage to walk through the door he opened. The years continued to be kind to the Zenon family. As Daniel reached his teenage years, he began to take on more responsibility on the ranch, working alongside his father with a quiet competence that made both parents proud. Grace discovered a love of healing and began working with Rosa to learn about herbs and medicine, dreaming of perhaps becoming a doctor someday. Women can be doctors, Fiona told her daughter firmly when Grace worried that her dream was impossible. It is harder, yes, but not impossible. And I will support you in whatever you choose to pursue. Even if it is not ranching, Grace asked tentatively. Especially if it is not ranching. Your path is your own, sweetheart. Your father and I only want you to be happy and fulfilled. Thomas showed an aptitude for numbers and began keeping the ranch books at age 12. His careful tallies and projections impressing even the banker in town. Hope, the baby, was growing into a spirited child who climbed every tree and raced every horse, fearless and full of life. They were all so different, these 4 children, but they shared one crucial trait: confidence in their parents' love. They made mistakes, sometimes big ones, but they were never afraid to come home and admit what they had done. When 15-year-old Daniel accidentally left a gate open and several valuable horses got out, he rode home in tears, certain he had ruined everything. But Zachary simply clapped him on the shoulder and said, "All right, let's go round them up and fix the gate latch." Happens to everyone at some point. When 13-year-old Grace tried to help birth a calf and made a decision that nearly cost the animal its life, she was devastated. But Fiona held her while she cried and said, "You tried your best with the knowledge you had. Next time, you will know to call for help sooner. That is how we learn." The philosophy of forgiveness that ruled their house extended beyond the family. The ranch hands knew they could admit errors without fear of being fired on the spot. Neighbors came to the Zenons when they needed help, knowing they would be treated with respect regardless of their circumstances. The crossroads became known not just for quality horses, but for the quality of people who ran it. On Fiona's 40th birthday, Zachary threw her a party that brought together everyone whose lives had been touched by the ranch. The house and yard filled with people, all of them eager to celebrate the woman who had helped create such a special place. "You have built something beautiful here," Rosa said, hugging Fiona tight. "Not just the ranch, but a real home, a place where people feel safe to be themselves." "We built it together," Fiona replied. "All of us. This is what happens when people choose love over fear." As the party wound down and guests departed, Fiona stood with Zachary on their porch, surveying the land they had worked so hard to cultivate. The ranch stretched out before them in the fading light, beautiful and prosperous. Their children laughed together near the barn, and the sound carried on the evening breeze like music. 20 years, Zachary said softly. 20 years since you walked out of that kitchen and took a chance on a stranger. Best decision I ever made." "I was thinking," he said, pulling her close, "that we should do something to mark this anniversary, something meaningful." "Like what?" "I want to start a program. Something to help other women like you were, women trapped in bad situations who need a way out. We could partner with the church, offer work and housing to women who need a fresh start." Fiona felt tears spring to her eyes. Zachary, that is perfect. You could run it. You would know better than anyone what they need, what they are afraid of, how to help them heal. And so the Crossroads Safe Haven was born. Over the next decade, more than 30 women passed through the ranch, each one finding temporary shelter, work, and healing before moving on to build their own lives. Some stayed for weeks, some for months, but all of them left stronger than they arrived. Fiona mothered each one with the same gentle firmness Zachary had shown her. She taught them skills, listened to their stories, and never judged their pasts. And Zachary made sure every woman knew that on his ranch, forgiveness ruled and violence was never tolerated. Daniel, Grace, Thomas, and Hope all contributed to the program as they grew older. They understood instinctively what their mother had survived, and they treated each woman with compassion and respect. When Daniel married at 25, he chose a woman named Sarah who had spent 3 months at the ranch recovering from her own difficult past. Fiona danced at their wedding with joy in her heart, knowing the cycle of healing was continuing into the next generation. Grace did become a doctor, one of the few women in California to achieve that goal. She opened a practice in town but spent 1 day a week at the ranch, providing free medical care to anyone who needed it. Thomas used his gift for numbers to build a successful business brokering horse sales, expanding the ranch's reputation across the West. And Hope, Wild Hope, became a champion rider and trainer, her fearlessness with horses legendary throughout the state. Through it all, Zachary and Fiona remained the steady center, their love the foundation upon which everything else was built. They grew older together, their hair graying and their faces lining, but their devotion never wavered. On their 40th wedding anniversary, surrounded by children, grandchildren, friends, and the countless lives they had touched, Fiona stood to make a toast. 40 years ago, I was a frightened girl who believed she deserved the pain she received. I thought love meant fear, and home meant danger. Then I met a man who showed me a different way. A way of patience and forgiveness, of gentleness and grace. He taught me that mistakes are not crimes, that people are more important than things, and that the greatest strength is choosing kindness when anger would be easier. She looked at Zachary, her eyes shining with tears. You saved my life, Zachary Zenon, not just by offering me shelter but by showing me what love really means. And together, we built something beautiful. Not just this ranch, but a legacy of healing. A place where forgiveness rules and everyone gets a second chance. Zachary stood and took her hands. You saved me too, Fiona. You taught me that gentleness can be powerful, that patience can change the world, and that love is not just a feeling but a daily choice. Every day for 40 years I have chosen you, and I would choose you again and again, for all eternity. They kissed to cheers and applause, and as the party continued around them, they slipped away to their favorite spot by the creek. The same place where Zachary had first told her he was falling in love. The same place where so many important conversations had happened over the years. You remember what you told me here that first time? Fiona asked, sitting on the smooth rock where they always sat. I told you that I was falling in love with you, that you were extraordinary, that I would catch you every time you fell. Have you kept that promise? Have I caught you? Every single time, she confirmed. Even when I did not know I was falling, you were there. You still are. Always will be, he promised. That is what forgiveness and love look like, Fiona. Not pretending mistakes do not happen, but being there to help fix them. Not ignoring pain, but helping heal it. Not demanding perfection, but celebrating growth. She leaned her head on his shoulder, listening to the creek burble past, the same water that had flowed here for decades and would flow for decades more. Constant, steady, reliable, like their love. I used to wonder, she said quietly, What my life would have been like if I had stayed with my mother, if I had been too afraid to leave. Do not think about that. No, it is not sad. I am grateful, because staying would have meant never knowing this, never knowing that love can be gentle, that home can be safe, that children can grow up secure and happy, that mistakes can be forgiven. I would have missed all of this, Zachary, and this is everything. You took the leap, love. I just provided the landing. We provided it for each other. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Around them, the ranch hummed with life and activity, but here by the creek, it was just the two of them. The girl who had been beaten for small mistakes and the cowboy who said forgiveness ruled his house. Together, they had built something extraordinary, not just a successful ranch but a haven of healing, not just a family but a legacy of love, not just a marriage, but a testament to what two people could create when they chose kindness over cruelty, patience over anger, and forgiveness over revenge. Their story was not unique, but it was remarkable. It proved that cycles could be broken, that wounds could heal, that love could conquer fear. It showed that the choices we make ripple outward, touching lives in ways we may never fully understand. Fiona had walked through a door that Zachary opened, and together they had built a home where everyone was welcome to do the same. Where the broken could become whole, where the frightened could find courage, where the hurt could discover healing. Where forgiveness ruled and love, true love, was the foundation of absolutely everything. As the stars began to emerge overhead, Zachary helped Fiona to her feet. "Come on, love. Let's go home." She took his hand, the same hand that had held hers through 40 years of joy and sorrow, triumph and challenge. The same hand that had caught her when she fell and lifted her when she stumbled. The same hand that had built their home and cradled their children and shown her every single day what love really meant. "Yes," she said, smiling up at the man who had changed her entire world. "Let's go home." And together, as they had done everything for 40 years, they walked back to the house where forgiveness ruled and love never failed. Back to the ranch that bore testament to their choices, to their children and grandchildren who carried forward their legacy, to the life they had built from broken pieces and gentle grace. They had started with so little, a frightened girl and a kind cowboy. But they had created so much, a family, a home, a safe haven for dozens of wounded souls, and a love story that would be told for generations. Because in the end, that is what mattered most. Not the mistakes that were made, but the forgiveness that followed. Not the pain of the past, but the healing of the present. Not the fear that had once ruled everything, but the love that conquered it all. The Crossroads Ranch stood as proof that the smallest acts of kindness could change everything. That opening a door could save a life. That saying forgiveness rules your house could build a legacy that touched hundreds of lives. And that love, real and true and gentle and patient love, was always, always worth choosing. Every single day, for 40 years, and for all the years still to come.